Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Today I'm going to be talking about how the Exoticals have ended the colorism conversation. When I say that we ended the conversation, what I really mean is that now we've got colorism content creators saying that the colorism conversation is unproductive, or, they're even trying to cancel content creators who want to get involved in the colorism conversation because they can't handle the smoke from the Exoticals. By the way, this video is inspired by Regular Degular Black Girl. She has an amazing channel. Be sure to subscribe to her. If I remember, I'm going to link her channel in the comment section. But she actually did a really amazing video about this. And she was talking about the whole Kane situation and how a lot of people, they will continue to follow these quote unquote colorists. People will call you a colorist in one breath and then they will go and support you in the next breath. And also, let's talk about light skin privilege for a moment. Who gives the privilege to light skins? Who's the one that's watching Kane? Who are the majority of her followers? Who are the majority of the followers and listeners to the music of women like Sweetie and Ice Spice? Who's following them on Instagram? Who's making videos about them? Oh, that's right. It's mainly Black women. But I want to address this comment that I saw. Somebody was trying to come for a Regular Degular Black Girl, and they said, they were talking about Kane. They said, the way she acknowledged it is completely different than how Zendaya acknowledged it, for example. It wasn't the message, it was how she delivered the message. Imagine if a white person said, you are black, so you will never do XYZ. LMAO, why is this so hard for y'all to understand? So this reminds me of the people who try to police my tone here on YouTube. First of all, we don't live in a utopian society, okay? So people have freedom of speech, and that includes having freedom of tone. So just because you don't like the way that they inflect their words, just because you don't like their accent or the vocal emphasis that they place on those words, it doesn't mean that they don't have the right to speak. Also, a lot of unambiguous Black women, a lot of colorist warriors will drag you no matter what tone you speak in. You guys dragged Thandie Newton, and she was crying when she acknowledged her privilege. You dragged Zendaya for wearing a type 4 wig after she acknowledged her privilege. And then you dragged Kane after she acknowledged her privilege. So guess what? The jig is up. We understand that people are going to talk shit either way. And so I feel like part of the reason why nobody wants to discuss this whole colorism thing anymore is because here in the exotical space, we have successfully exposed how a lot of women have used the colorism talking point as a way to express their envy for women who are not unambiguous mono dark skinned Black women with the 4C hair and the broad features. And by the way, if you don't believe me, let's look up the definition of the word envy. Envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. And for those of you who do not agree with that definition, or for those of you who want to try to say that those women who created the colorism content were not envious, no worries, because I pulled up 10 different definitions from ChatGPT of envy, and I'm going to prove in this video how a lot of colorism content creators meet all 10 of these different definitions. So number one, it says that envy is resentful desire. So when you think about luck, you think of someone who seems to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe these are the women who get into the club for free. I see a lot of colorism content creators on social media. One of the biggest complaints that some of these women have is, I didn't get into the club for free. I didn't get into so-and-so's section. So you're really just jealous. It sounds like you desired to get into the section. Because, I mean, that's what envy is. It means that you want what someone else got and you're mad that you didn't get it. So anytime a Black woman comes online and says, I'm mad because I didn't get into the club for free and my friends did, that is literally, by definition, envy. And if you don't believe me, look at the screenshot right here. It means that you are both resentful, but you also desire the thing that you are resentful of. So you're mad that you didn't get into the section, but you wanted to get into the section. And so now you're trying to hide your envy, or you're trying to express yourself, but you don't want people to know that it's envy, and you're masking it under being colorist. Also, let's talk about the club section thing, because if you are paying for a club section, guess what? Whoever pays for it, they can say whatever they want. They can make whatever standards they want. Also, exclusivity is not colorism, unless, of course, you would like to admit that you, as an unambiguous Black person, are also a colorist. Because if exclusivity equals colorism, then that would mean that the entire black community is colorist. All of the YouTube channels that center unambiguous dark skinned black women are colorist. So do you see how there's this constant double standard? So exclusivity is not colorist as long as it centers unambiguous black women. But anytime it centers anything else, then it's suddenly colorist. So if somebody says, I want all blondes in my section, I want all fat girls in my section, all skinny girls, all rappers, I only want the people that I paid for to be in my section, then suddenly people will hide behind colorism. Remember that colorism is mainly about social status. It's not about social justice. Anytime people talk about colorism, listen to the examples that they name. Usually they will begin naming exclusivity, which is not colorism. If you pay for a section at the club, you have the right to exclude whoever you want to exclude. Also, let's talk about preferences as well. Preferences are not colorist because remember, colorism means you are directly disparaging someone. Like if somebody were to say, oh, I don't prefer dark skinned black women because the dark skin looks ugly and dark skinned black women, they have all these negative qualities. Okay, then yes, you could say, okay, that's being colorist. But if somebody simply says, I prefer Italian women, I'm an Italian white man, I prefer Italian women, or I prefer blondes because I'm a blonde guy, that is actually not colorism because you are not disparaging somebody else based on their color. But definition number 2 of envy, jealous longing. It is a painful or resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, accompanied by a desire to possess the same advantage. A great example of this is when it comes to the dating app conversation. There was one unambiguous black woman who made an entire video proving how undesirable she was on dating apps by lightening her skin on the photo so that she could show, hey, I'm less desirable than someone with my exact same features who has a lighter skin tone. Also, while I'm in the middle of editing this, I noticed that this woman lightened her skin tone to Megan the Stallion's skin tone. So, have you ever noticed how a lot of people suddenly want to create all of these stipulations for what is now considered light skin? That's actually a sign that the light skin pedestal has actually gotten bigger because nobody was arguing back then with this dark skinned woman saying, oh, when you lighten the photo, she was only brown skin. She wasn't a real light skinned person. So that's not actually proving colorism existed. Nope, nobody even questioned the exact skin tone that this woman lightened her skin to in order to prove the existence of colorism. But then when you've got an actual woman in real life with that same skin tone and the same phenotype with the West African facial features, Megan the Stallion, then suddenly some of the same people want to argue and say, well, she doesn't really count. She's an unambiguous dark-skinned black woman. And also, people seem to forget that you can be a caramel shade and tan into dark skin. But the fact that this woman lightened her skin tone to Meg the Stallion's skin tone and no one argued and no one denied the light skin privilege is actually further proof that brown skins have light skin privilege as well. I'm going to be talking more about that in an upcoming series, but let's continue. So it's jealousy because obviously you're resentful of the fact that you don't feel as desirable, but you also want to possess that advantage of getting more dating app likes or whatever. Like for some women, that's important. I guess they want to have likes. I guess apparently they don't want just one boyfriend. For some women, it's not about quality, it's about quantity. So that content creator who made that video, she was trying to prove her point by talking about quantity and saying, this other girl who has a lighter skin tone, she got more messages, or the guys, they sent her a longer message than me. They tried harder to ask her on a date. So that's jealous longing. So you're angry that someone else had guys put more effort into her, and you long for that yourself. This is a lot of what you see talked about on Chrissy's YouTube channel. She talks, a lot of her content was based on jealous longing. A lot of it was based on envy because she would say things like, a lot of these NBA players and rappers and black men and stuff, they're going to get with these mixed race women or light skinned women. So she was making it known to dark skinned black women, hey, I know that dark skinned black women long for these rich, famous, wealthy men, but they're not going to get with you because of your skin tone. That's another example of jealous longing. So you're telling people, I can't have what this other woman has. I don't have access to high earning, high status celebrity people like this other girl has. And I've noticed that now they're trying to do something called divesting, which is where they're going over to the white community and creating mixed babies. So they're actually still contributing to the multiracial community. And even if you look at divestment, divestment is really just trying to teach unambiguous black women how to become multicultural. They're trying to teach the black women how to navigate in non black cultures so that they can attract a marriage and, of course, create mixed race babies and stuff like that and kind of thrive in this multiracial environment. And so that's actually proof that those women who made that content, they long for being in a multiracial or multicultural environment. So you can still tie it back to envy. Here's the definition again, right here on the screen. Jealous longing. It's a painful or resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another. A lot of women in the divestment movement, they even call white men zaddy or conquerors, saying that basically whiteness is at the top. So if they view whiteness as being at the top, that would mean that if you're mixed, black and white, if you're half white, you would be above them because you're half white or because you're a quarter white. So once again, that's also proof of envy because it's jealous longing. Number 3 is covetousness. Envy involves an intense desire to possess something that belongs to someone else, often accompanied by feelings of resentment or ill will towards that person. So these are the people who will make fun of your domestic violence and stuff like that. They may say things like, you got the same black man. They may make fun of the abuse of your children, like in the case with E. Kane. Actually, I heard that E. Kane, that somebody was making fun of her children getting assaulted or saying they hope her kids get assaulted or something. So that's actually a part of envy. It's having actual ill will towards that person, meaning you want something bad to happen to that person. There are people who have created their whole entire YouTube channel based on quote unquote preferences or mixed race women or non-black women having bad things happening to them. And so that's an example of having resentment, or you have feelings of ill will towards that person because you enjoy highlighting the bad treatment that that person gets. So this reminds me of, like, with the whole Cassie thing. I saw a lot of colorism content creators bringing that up and saying, well, I'm glad I didn't look like Cassie because look what happened to her. Or same thing with E. Kane, you got the same black man, or your privilege didn't stop you from getting your ass beat. So that's an example though of covetousness because you have a desire to possess something that belongs to someone else. A lot of colorism content creators, as a content creator, you desire followers and views and stuff. And so I remember even on Queen Chalma's YouTube video, she pulled up E. Kane's TikTok and she saw that E. Kane had 3.9 million followers. So you as a content creator naturally have a desire to possess those metrics, whether it's millions of views, millions of subscribers, millions of Patreon subscribers and stuff. So that is still actually a form of envy because you desire to possess something that E. Kane has, which is her followers or her money, or maybe it's her brand deals. So whenever people were saying things like, oh, E. Kane, you didn't reach the heights. What heights did you reach? Okay, well, that's actually a disingenuous comment because you can't deny the fact that E. Kane has success. She may not have perfect success. By the way, there's no such thing. Have you ever noticed how whenever you're considered to be more privileged than someone else, the standard for you is so much higher? The standard for you is absolute perfection. Meanwhile, if you're talking about someone who considers themselves underprivileged, they will talk about how the government holds them back, society holds them back, colorism, texturism, and featureism hold them back, but there's no empathy. The standards for somebody who's privileged, the standard has to be perfection. And so with E. Kane, I've noticed that a lot of people, they tried to bring up her being abused or her kids being abused and stuff. And it's like, okay, you're being disingenuous though, because you're purposely trying to leave out the fact that she makes hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And you know damn well that there are millions of people who would love to have an extra $200,000 to go in their bank account. So actually, that is a height. That is a financial height that a lot of people wish to possess. And so still, that's actually proof of covetousness because a lot of people, they envy that. They envy money or status or followers or whatever. And then they have ill will towards that person because, they think she's a colorist or whatever. Number 4 definition of envy, green-eyed monster. This phrase, coined by Shakespeare, refers to envy as a monstrous emotion characterized by intense jealousy towards another person's success, happiness, or advantages. The first person that comes to mind when I'm thinking of this is Tyla. I'm also thinking of Ice Spice. I've noticed that a lot of people, they get randomly mad at these women. They will go out of their way to try to cancel these women, or they will say these women only got to where they are due to their skin tone. Or they'll bring up their success. They'll say, why did this girl win an award and then the other person didn't win the award? Oh, she gets more notoriety in Hollywood and other people don't. So they're actually showing these intense emotions of jealousy, and it has to do with success. It has to do with happiness. It has to do with advantages, because in a lot of envious people's minds, having access to fame and, winning Grammys and all that, that's an advantage in their mind. And so that's another example of envy. Number 5, discontent at others' success. Envy can be seen as dissatisfaction or unhappiness caused by another person's good fortune, success, or advantages. These are the women who come online and say, I don't have pretty privilege and that sucks. If you look at Ostefko's YouTube video, she expressed discontentment at the fact that she was always the friend that was not approached. And she has multiple videos about this. She talks about being discontent at the fact that her friends were successful in dating and marriage and stuff. She even brought up her mixed race friend, and how her friend who was mixed, how she met her husband at a bar, and she was saying how it was her birthday, and then her and the friend walked in the bar, and then her friend was like turning heads in the bar, and then she didn't turn any heads in the bar. And so, according to ChatGPT, that is actually a form of envy. It's discontent at another person's success. So Ostefko was expressing that she was unhappy because she was not being approached. And her other friends, they were successful at being approachable. They were successful at being magnetic and attracting male attention. Also, notice how the colorism conversation revolves around the male gaze, whether it's the black male gaze or the white male gaze. Number 6, definition of envy: comparison with bitterness. It involves comparing oneself unfavorably with others and feeling bitter or resentful because of another's achievements or advantages. So, bringing up the dating app thing once again. So, you're comparing yourself negatively to someone else. Some people will compare their Instagram followers to someone else. They will compare their male attention to someone else. They will create a fake profile of somebody else's picture, and then they will compare themselves negatively and say, she gets more male attention than me, or she gets more black male validation, or whatever. And so it's comparison, but it also has some bitterness in it because that person is resentful against you. Number 7, envy is an invidious feeling characterized by resentment or discontent because of another person's possessions. So these are the people who get mad because maybe somebody else is getting the princess treatment. Maybe somebody else is being provided for. Have you ever noticed that whenever somebody wants to talk down on a woman, they will devalue her based on whether or not she's being provided for by a man? So they will say, you're still going 50-50, or, you're still paying half of your bills. So they're doing that because they're saying that, a hypergamous marriage is at the top. And then, beneath that would be like a 50-50 marriage or something. And then at the very bottom would be, oh, you can't keep a man, that sort of thing. The next definition of envy is wanting what others have. Have you ever noticed that a lot of colorism content creators, they're actually not against colorism, because they will say, colorism is bad, but then as soon as their skin tone is being pedestalized by a white man, they will endorse that. In fact, they will say, go where you're celebrated, go and date white men because they're going to find your skin tone to be exotic. Isn't that interesting? They will tell other dark-skinned black women that they should go into the white community where they will be viewed as exotic. But then they'll get mad at women with other phenotypes who are viewed as exotic. So do you see the hypocrisy? That's actually a definition of envy. It's wanting what others have. So they're hiding behind the colorism talking point, but in reality, they themselves want to be seen as exotic. They themselves want to be seen as the prize. They themselves want to be seen as pretty. They want their skin tones to be seen as inherently pretty. So they're actually not against isms, and they're also not against pedestals. They're only mad when the pedestal does not benefit them. So the next one is destructive emotions. So these are the negative emotions that can lead to negative thoughts, negative actions, or behaviors towards the person that you envy. So a lot of you guys have seen content creators where they will call women ugly, or they'll say their features are ugly. They'll talk about their non-black features. Let's say you're mixed or something. They'll talk about your non-black features being ugly, or maybe they will say or do destructive things in real life, such as pulling your hair, cutting your hair off, wanting to fight you, threatening violence against you and stuff like that. And then the next one is comparative unhappiness. So this refers to the unhappiness or dissatisfaction that arises when one compares herself unfavorably with others who seem to have more or be more successful. Name one person that talks about colorism without comparing dark skinned women to light skinned women. Name one content creator who talks about colorism without comparing black women to non black women. Name one. I'll wait. The whole entire colorism conversation is based on unambiguous black women comparing themselves negatively to other groups of women. Some will even go as far as to project their own internalized colorism, and then they'll make comments like, dark skinned women are at the bottom. Dark skinned black women are at the bottom. If you're dark skinned, you are less marketable than somebody who's light skinned. So you have inferior marketability because of your dark skin tone. You have inferior desirability because of your skin tone. So the whole colorism conversation is based around comparing yourself to other women. It's about competing with women for the male gaze. It's about trying to hide your envy, and really you're resentful of what these other women have, whether it's social status, the male gaze, fame, social media followers, clout, likes on Instagram, views on TikTok, whatever, Grammys, celebrity status. They can be sugar babies. You can't, whatever it is. All of this revolves around comparing yourself to someone that you view as socially better than you. And then they will call it privileged. Because remember, privilege means you have certain advantages. It means that you have cultural capital. It means you have social power. So remember, the whole colorism conversation was revolving around social status. It had nothing to do with social justice, even though these women tried to come online and pretend like they were just these people who didn't care about social status. We don't care about all of that stuff. When in reality, no, it was a bad social climbing tactic. At least on this channel, we're very honest and we say, hey, yeah, we do care about social status. And also, another thing I've noticed is that people will accuse you of perpetuating an ism because you happen to benefit from an ism. So if you benefit from pretty privilege, oh, you're perpetuating lookism. And it's like, no, that's just a guilt tactic that you're trying to place on that person because you're hoping that they will somehow shrink themselves so that they can be on a more even playing field with you because you view yourself as being beneath them. So don't ever let anybody guilt you for like how you were born, because remember, you did not create the society that we live in. And also, somebody commented on this channel a couple days ago. They were like, "Oh, well, you should still be advocating for other people." No, I actually don't owe anybody my advocacy. This is the problem with people on social media. Guess what? Me as a content creator, I am not your puppet. You don't get to just pull the strings and control what I create content about. You don't get to use me as your mouthpiece and then I speak out about the things that you're too scared to talk about, that you're too scared to create content about. No, other people don't actually owe you anything. So actually, no, I don't owe anybody my advocacy. I don't owe anybody a cape. I don't owe anybody my activism. So I get to pick and choose who I want to advocate for. I get to pick and choose who I want to cape for. And I'm not caping for anybody who doesn't cape for me. And I'm certainly not going to cape for someone who lectures me in my own comment section on a YouTube channel that I spent years building. So have you ever noticed that it's always the people who are not builders who want you to advocate for them? Black men did it when it came to the pro-black movement. They were using the unambiguous black women to stand outside, to hold up the signs, to give a lot of the speeches, to show up at the courthouse, to pass out the waters and stuff when they had the March on Washington and all that. Just because other women made bad social climbing decisions, it doesn't mean that we have to do the same over here. And so actually, no, nobody owes you anything. And then you, for the person who's watching this, you have the power to decide who you're going to cape for, what you're going to cape for, what you choose to care about. Nobody else can control you or guilt you into caring about a cause that you don't care about. And so a lot of the colorism conversation was really just fake outrage. None of it was really about any sort of like criminal justice for the most part. A lot of it was really about social status. It was about women who were complaining and basically highlighting how undesirable they were in comparison to other women, or it's just women trying to divest and, they're trying to get the white male gaze. And so instead of being black male centered, they're now non-black male centered. And so they're trying to learn how to be multicultural so that they can navigate into these white spaces, these Hispanic spaces. They're trying to learn about all these different cultures because they've spent decades of their lives being monocultural. and then they're expressing envy against multicultural black women or multiracial black women. And so this is actually why a lot of those women are not actual divestors, because first of all, they're learning from women like Shira Seven, who's actually married to a black man. So if you're truly divested from blackness, I mean, why are you watching a woman who's married to a black guy then? Why are you taking your advice from her? By the way, Chrissy has a history of dating black men. Cynthia G has dated black men. So this is another thing too. When it comes to the colorism conversation and all of this online black conversation stuff, is it once a colorist, always a colorist? So, like, if somebody makes a colorist comment back in 1995, are they still a colorist in 2024? Can people redeem themselves from being colorist? Because then I want to know, if you believe once a colorist, always a colorist, okay, so then what about your mom? What about your dad? Because a lot of these women who feel insecure about their features, they got their insecurities from somewhere. And also, a lot of black women have said that the black fathers are absent. Okay, so you can't blame the black men then, because the women are raising the children. So a black woman raised you. So who was the first person to make a negative comment about 4C hair? So do you believe that if somebody makes a texturist comment once, that they are forever a texturist? Makes a colorist comment once, that they're forever a colorist. So do you see how there are actually no real standards for what makes someone colorist, what makes someone texturist, what makes someone featurist? There are no actual standards. And so it took us actually standing up and pointing out the holes in these talking points for them to finally recoil and say, okay, fine, we're not going to talk about it anymore. Has anyone else noticed that? And what do you think? Do you think that if somebody says something colorist once, that they're always a colorist? Do you think if they say something texturist or featurist or racist once, that they're always going to be a racist? And for those of you who do believe that, once a racist, always a racist, my question is, so do you think that when you divest, do you think you're going to come across white people who have never said anything racist in their entire lives? Or people whose white mom or their white dad never said anything racist in their entire life? And also, for the people who have smoked for mixed race women with white moms, you're trying to divest to Scott, who has a white mom. You're trying to divest to a Hispanic man who has a white passing mom. So that's another hypocrisy. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.